Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're at Mawnan Church.
It was quite late at night, but not quite dark. Red eyes, black mouth, it was very big with great big wings and black claws, feathers grey.
And isn't it meant to hiss when it's
It is
about
supposed
to
to
come?
hiss, yes, yeah.
Can you hear anything?
I saw this monster bird last night. It stood like a man, but it flew up through the trees. It's as big as a man. Its eyes are red and shone brightly. Did you hear that?
Was that a twit or a twoo? I experienced what I could only describe as a vision from hell. Today we're in the tiny hamlet of Mawnan, specifically at the church. Mawnan is near Mawnan Smith, which is a larger village near Falmouth. Near the church there's a small car park for a handful of cars where you can park for a small fee. We will be on the trail of reports of strange sightings of the Owlman in the churchyard and nearby woodland. Later we'll explore the woods and walk towards the coast, but for now let's explain more about the Owlman. Hello everybody, we're here at Mawnan Church. Beautiful, quintessential Cornish church.
I mean, this is a really good, this is an interesting story. There's lots of twists in this story as well. And we've basically come to try to work out whether there's enough in this that it's either, you know, that there is evidence that it's true.
Yeah.
Or whether it's just something that over the years has just become a bit of a hoax.
Well, I think I know which side of the story I land on, but let's give you the evidence. So you said the Owlman, as in a bird?
Yeah, so it's half man, half owl.
Okay.
Oh, so it's a winged man. And apparently it's been spotted on a number of occasions. We're not just talking about once, we're talking about a number of occasions over the last 100 years. But this thing's supposed to be terrifying. It's supposed to be about 5 to 6 foot tall. It's got a wingspan of it as well. I think they said it's about a 7 or 8 foot wingspan. It's supposed to be huge. Piercing red eyes, sharp talons, and it's got the most sinister looking face.
And isn't it meant to hiss when it's
It is
about
supposed
to
to
come?
hiss, yes, yeah.
Can you hear anything?
I can clear the wind in the tree.
Yeah, that's all.
A book, Sarah.
In order to help tell today's story, we have looked through a lot of our collection of old books that date from 1824 onwards, really. The King's England book is from the 1930s, and it gives a little bit of detail about every hamlet and village that was visited by the author Arthur Mee. He says of Mawnan, one of the faraway places where we can lose ourselves to all the world, yet live in great comfort in the 20th century inn. It lies where the River Helford widens out to Falmouth Bay, its church standing on the cliff like the northern warden of the gate. It is mainly 15th century. A long way for the village folk to come, it hides itself even when we reach the end of the lane. So that gives you an idea of the setting of this church. It's actually in a place, a hamlet called Mawnan, which is about a mile or so from Mawnan Smith, which is where there is a lot more houses. Hence he's saying there's quite a walk from the village for folks to get to the church. Behind us here, and I'll show you in a minute, is the River Helford. So it's got the most beautiful setting. However, it has a dark side, and it is at the centre of today's story. So bearing in mind the history of this church and how far back in time it goes, I wonder if they've got a bit more detail inside the church. Let's go and have a look.
It does say in here, which is quite interesting to what we're looking at today, it says the church is situated within the confines of an ancient earthwork, which was in an excellent state of preservation until part was levelled when the church was enlarged in or about the year 1920.
Oh,
yeah. This earthwork, crowning, as it does, a commanding eminence on the north side and near the mouth of the Helford River, must have been the rampart of an oval entrenchment.
Do you think we can still find this mound that they were talking about.
Yeah, so
in the churchyard.
we've just come out. We've got a tower here, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an obvious.
Oh!
It's an obvious rise in front of us. Should we show people what we're looking at?
How did I miss that? Oh, wow. Yeah, it's clearly defined there. So you guys, if you're keeping up with us, are getting the idea that there's been a burial ground or human activity here since Roman times. In fact, they even found coins here.
They did. I think in the 1920s, when they were actually doing this enlargement work here. I think that's when they uncovered some Roman coins.
The superstitious amongst us may wonder whether there is any connection between these disturbances of the ancient earthworks and what came next.
First piece of evidence we've got happened in 1926, where two young lads were near the churchyard and they had an encounter with this owlman, and it frightened the wits out of them. They ran off and they actually hid, and ultimately this thing disappeared and it went away. Now we know about that because it was a record of it, and it went into the Cornish Echo newspaper at the time, and that was the last we kind of heard about it. The next sighting of this didn't happen until the 1970s, but there was something that went on in the 1930s which is important to this story.
So in the 1930s, in 1937 actually, isn't it? There's a couple that come into this story.
Yeah, so the main character is a surrealist painter, and he goes by the name of Max Ernst.
Right. And his girlfriend at the time was called Leonora Carrington, and she was the daughter of quite a wealthy, influential man.
Yeah, and there's quite an age gap between the two of them. He's a much older man, and as far as I understand it, the young lady's father completely disapproved of this relationship, and he thought this Max Ernst was a bad influence on his daughter, and he basically wanted this guy to get away and to disappear. So this Max Ernst is a surrealist painter. Okay, he was exhibiting in London,
right,
in a gallery, and obviously some of it's quite risque, and there were quite strong laws at that time around things like imagery.
Right.
Yes. Anyway, he got the police involved. He got the police involved, and they wanted to arrest him for displaying pornographic images from his paintings. Okay, so. He was on the run. He knew the police were after him.
He was on the run?
He was on the run from the police. Now, some friends of his, it's quite a bohemian group of collectives with the artistic types, isn't it?
Yes.
One of them had a cottage down near Malpas, across the river from Malpas, a place called Lamb Creek. There's a whole group, I think it might have been 8 of them there, all different types of
disciplines, yeah?
Yeah, you had photographers, you had artists, poets, writers. They were all there. And so he was here in Cornwall in 1937. And it's alleged that he was here in the churchyard trying to summon up the spirit of the owlman.
Did he succeed? So did Max Ernst and his girlfriend Leonora Carrington release untold demons, or was it just a bit of fun? So 1976, there's a family from Preston. They come down to holiday. Mum, Dad and 2 daughters. The daughters were called June and I've forgotten the name of the other one, but they were 12 and 9. Right. And the 2 girls, they were camping here in the woods and they saw the owlman. They went back to Mum and Dad absolutely petrified. They were terrified about what they'd seen.
So much so that they cut short their holiday, didn't they? Can you imagine that? Come to sunny Cornwall for a week. You're here for 3 days and then all this happens and you've got to go home again. Last time we take you.
So what happens with the girls then? Does anything follow up? Is there an investigation?
Yeah, so they were so freaked out about this. Now there's a local character that we need to bring in at this point, and it's a guy who goes by the name of Tony Shields. Yeah. Okay, he's also called the Doc. And he also went by another name of the Wizard of the West, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, now he gets involved and he's quite interested in this story, and he contacts the dad and says, would you mind if I came and met with your daughters and try and get a description and find out a bit more about it? I'm interested in it.
Can't imagine he said yes.
No, so he said no, you're not doing that. However, he said I am prepared to write down a description for you. I'll get the girls to do it, and they will do some drawings of what they saw, and they sent it to him. That's what we're dealing with, sir, isn't it? We want to see that.
Oh wow, so these are the drawings from the little girls that
Yes,
saw him
yeah.
in 1976.
This one from 1976. So it says, Birdman monster, seen on the 3rd of July, quite late at night, but not quite dark. Red eyes. Black mouth. It was very big, with great big wings and black claws and grey feathers. So it's a good description, isn't it?
It's a very good drawing, actually. Looks quite menacing, doesn't it? Over the next few years, there was a couple of other sightings, one in 1978 and another in 89. In 1995 came what could be described as the most credible report. It was from an American tourist student. She was so disturbed by what she saw, she wrote to the editor of the Western Morning News. And it went along the lines of this: I had the most unique and frightening experience in the wooded area near Old Church at Mawnan. I experienced what I could only describe as a vision from hell. It saw me and rose, floating towards me. I just screamed and turned and ran for my life. The whole experience was totally irrational and dreamlike. So some of these sightings are suggesting that it can fly.
Yeah, they've actually seen the thing take off and fly away.
Oh, I think that's getting scarier, actually. Now, let's give you a bit more information about the type of character that Doc Shiels was. So this is a magazine called the Cornish Review, and it was published in summer 1974. And Doc Shiels actually contributed an article, and it's called The Tent Shows Summers. So this guy was involved with circus performance. He was actually a conjurer, a magician, and he says here, it was our very first adventure in tenting, although we had some previous experience in entertaining the public, both musically and magically, at one time and another. This was very different from anything else we'd tried. An old-fashioned tent show, complete with gaudily painted faceables and a mysterious air of Eastern promise. So he's conjuring up this image of another world using magic and suggestion and diverting people's expectation to entertain them. This guy is an entertainer. He's there to help people escape their daily lives. Okay, so Mawnan Church is in a wooded area. So this sighting was in the woodland, which is literally down a lane beside the church. It is within a stone's throw of the church. So we're going to walk down into the woods, probably do a mile or so, won't we, just to see, is it possible that somebody could hide in there? What do you reckon so far, then?
I hope you're keeping up at home. It's quite a timeline, isn't it? So we started off in the 1920s, and these two young boys see the first sighting of the Owlman.
Yeah.
And they were obviously so scared they went off and hid. But they did tell the newspaper at the time, and the newspaper printed.
The newspaper
that's how
ran with it.
we know about it, isn't it? Then we got this weird thing about this Max Ernst guy, this surrealist painter being down there. And the suggestion was he was in this churchyard doing all sorts of things, trying to conjure up you know, spirits
rituals,
or demons, and he had this fascination with owls and had this alter ego. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really weird, isn't it? Then it all goes quiet, doesn't it? Until we get this this Doc Shiels guy, Tony Shiels,
who's a
wasn't it?
Showman.
He was, isn't it?
And he'd probably be right up his street, this sort of thing, wouldn't
so he
it?
gets involved off the back of these two girls seeing it in 1976.
Yes.
And they were so scared that they had to leave, didn't they? They get cut short their holiday. And then these sightings start to increase, isn't it? And whether that's because of the publicity.
Yeah, kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like.
Possible.
So
anyway,
we're going to head down into the woods,
we are,
aren't
because
we?
it's at the back of the graveyard here, down in the woods, where these sightings have been seen, as far as I can understand. And we've chosen the right time of the year because it's autumn, Sarah, and all the leaves are coming off the trees. So if there is a giant Owlman down here, I reckon we've got a good chance of seeing it today.
And if there isn't, we can ask the, you know, is it feasible? Is there kind of like a, if it's a bird, do they have nests? Or do they live in houses? And if he has such a large wingspan, would he be able to take off and fly up through the canopy? Or is it too dense? There's all that sort of thing. You can sort of like start to maybe either confirm or erode the possibilities.
Let's go and have a look. Just to give you some context, that's obviously the back of the church and the graveyard there. And literally at the back, we've got these very steep steps which Sarah's demonstrating, and that takes us down into a heavily wooded area on the banks of the river.
I must admit, this is not somewhere that I particularly enjoy walking, and it's purely because it is so steep, and I always feel as though one wrong foot and you're going to end up in the river.
Yeah, it's literally down there, isn't it? We're not, well, it's the sea, isn't it? It's where the sea turns into the river at the mouth of the River Helford, isn't it?
Yeah, we're right on the edge here, aren't we? So yeah, it's not somewhere, it's not my favourite place.
We've walked through
in Cornwall.
here in the middle of summer as well, and it's very dark, isn't it? You go from it being a very bright day to it's such a big canopy here, isn't it?
So does that answer one of our points then? Is it possible for a thing with an 8-foot wingspan to lift up and take off through these trees?
Well, that's a huge wingspan, isn't it? I mean, if you saw
it?
something like that, it would freak you out completely.
And the
wouldn't
noise.
It would, wouldn't it? The suggestion was that these boys in the 1920s, the thought was that it could have been an owl. It could have been a big owl.
Oh, okay.
And people have said, I think there's a European owl.
Right.
Okay.
It's a great owl, isn't it?
Yeah, which has got a huge wingspan. So it could have been something like that, and then their imagination starts to run wild. And I kind of think that if there was something more than that living here, there would have been more things seen back at that time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if it was an owl, if it was a giant owl, then probably you'd see it quite a bit if it stayed here, if it liked it here.
Where does it live? Let's have a look.
Oh yeah, look, it's past there.
So the more we think about this story, the more I'm kind of leaning towards it being concocted, conjured up for attention seeking, rather than an actual creature. Although having said that, we've also read about ancient societies, ancient civilizations having creatures that were a combination of birds and men. So yeah, I'm on the fence at the moment. This is the headland. It's actually the estuary of the Helford River, which is behind Andrew. We just came out here to see if we could get a shot of the church spire, but it is buried in those trees. It's quite heavily wooded.
I think it's in there behind those trees.
Yeah.
But it's very heavily wooded. It's, you know, it'd be a good hiding spot in there.
Exactly, it would be good to hide in. But is it good for somebody that's dressing up as the Owlman, or is it good for the Owlman?
Oh, okay, so you're going down that route. You think it might be someone...
Starting to think like that, yeah.
But these eyewitnesses sort of thing take off. How are they going to do that?
Yeah, I can't explain that one yet.
So we've got the Mawnan Owlman.
Yes.
Now in America they've got the Mothman.
Yes.
All right, similar sort of thing. Half man, half moth. That's supposed to be, if that's seen, it's supposed to be a very bad sign. It's like some sort of terrible fate.
Omen of doom.
Yeah, it is. Whether this Owlman thing might have supposed to be about the same thing, I don't know.
Gosh.
Anyway, if you think this video is a hoot, give it a thumbs up.
And if you're enjoying watching us walk around the Cornish countryside in this horrible Cornish mizzle, then why not subscribe? It's free on YouTube. And if you want to know more about Cornwall and what we're up to, then join us on Facebook and Instagram. Love to see you over there. Are you ready? Into the Owlman's lair.
Well, if we do see it, Sarah, it's going to be a bad omen, I reckon.
No.
This is where it happens, Sarah.
I know, we're going deep
here.
into the woods.
We've got a few theories about this. We'll come on to them in just a minute. But my favourite fact about the owl, Sarah.
Yes.
Right. So, the female owl goes...
Twit.
Woo.
No.
No, twit. Oh, hang on.
The female owl
Yes.
says twit.
Hello. Oh, twoo.
And the twit answers,
Twoo.
yeah.
Oh, well, let's try that then. We've got to try and coax it out somehow, because we're assuming it's probably a male owl, isn't it? So you've got to call it.
Do I have to?
Yeah, go on.
Twit. Twit. Tweet! You know there's a big flaw in your plan here.
There's a squirrel up there, by the way.
Yeah, your flaw here.
What's that?
I'm an old woman.
Right.
And it's only appeared to young women
Oh.
and girls
Okay.
and a couple of little boys.
Right.
So, you know, I think you're onto the wrong thing. Anyway, nothing's arrived. Thank goodness.
Go on, do it again.
No! Alright, one more time.
Okay.
One more time.
Yeah, go on. Go on.
Tweet!
Woo!
I wasn't expecting you to do that. To be thorough, we decided to walk to the other end, the extent of the woodland. So we're at the other end,
We are, aren't we?
aren't we?
It's not very long, is it? I reckon it's
About half a
probably
mile.
quarter to half a mile long.
Yeah.
It's
Dense woodland
It
though.
is dense. It's very slopey, isn't it? Down,
Yeah.
down to the sea. I don't think it's a big enough area. We're not talking about a huge forest or anything like that that something could hide in, is it?
No.
I don't think it's a big enough area for something the size of the Owlman to live in.
I will counter that by saying if he could take off,
Yeah,
he could fly anywhere.
he could. So why does he keep coming back here?
Good counter. So it's really opening up here now, isn't it? Obviously we're here at autumn. The leaves aren't as dense on the canopy of the trees. In fact, there's quite a lot on the floor already. So in summertime, when you're camping, it would be even darker and denser as a canopy. Back at the churchyard, we got to 1995 with a Chicago student, but the story doesn't actually end there. We're going to head back up to the graveyard and just bring you right up to date, tell you the final instalment, if you like, so that you can make up your own mind. Is this true or is it a hoax? And that was an owl.
That was an owl. Did you hear that?
Was that a twit or a twoo? That was a twoo. All the hairs on the back of my neck have just gone nuts.
It's coming from the church area as well. It's back that way.
God, we've got to go back that way.
That was an owl.
That was an owl.
You don't normally hear owls, do you?
Not in the daytime.
Not in the daytime.
Oh, I wish I hadn't said twit so much now. What are you feeling? I'm a bit anxious
I
now.
am a bit now. I don't know if that came out on camera though. I definitely heard it.
Yeah, I did too.
Look, you're calling of it. It's obviously work. You
I'm
need
not
to do
doing it again. No, 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 no. No, I'm not doing it again. No. Okay, calm down. I've just had a thought. Of course, you don't hear that noise when the Owlman's coming. You hear hissing. So we're fine, everybody. We are absolutely fine. I must admit, I've picked up the pace a bit. I just want to get out of these woods now. I can understand why these kids felt so scared. Since when do you hear an owl in the middle of the day? This is bonkers. We came down here to dispel this, not to reinforce it. You're giggling.
All right, we go out and about and film a lot, don't we? A lot. And I've never heard an owl in the daytime.
No, nor have I. Let's just get out of these woods. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Giant mushrooms.
Magic mushrooms. God, I'm so out of breath. I walked up that hill so quickly. Okay, so we're back in the graveyard, and funnily enough, I feel a lot more comfortable in the graveyard than I did in those spooky woods. But so to bring us up to date,
yes, yeah,
2019.
There was another alleged sighting of the Owlman, and it was here in the graveyard, and it was captured. It was captured on video.
Can't get away from him.
No, I know. It was captured by a fellow YouTuber.
Yes.
And it made the newspapers, didn't it?
Just briefly in the corner of one shot, wasn't it? Now we have got a screenshot of where he was filming from, so we'll go back up there now and just double check for ourselves.
Good idea.
In the footage there are 2 Celtic crosses and a bench. Now this is the bench we were at earlier, kind of deliberately, because just in front of the bench It's 2 Celtic crosses. And there's also a yew tree. And we think this is where the filming went on. Now, Andrew, in that frame, whereabouts?
Well, I think they wandered down
They wandered over here.
And in that clip,
in the
I
dark.
think the chap's called Mark. Who,
Yes.
He's obviously filming. He's out with a friend. Braver than us, so I know that. I mean,
I don't want to come out in the dark.
They've got one of these handheld sort of devices which detects whether there's a spirit present, and he's asking questions and that type of thing. And he gets it to light up, and he's panning around. And I think he's reached about here, and he starts panning around. And he looks back towards that way.
Yeah.
And in the very corner, it's quite well lit.
It's kind of in the corner over here.
It looks as if it's between gravestones, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you can clearly make out a figure. You can see there's 2 legs, and it looks like it's got wings.
Right.
And it also looks as if it's got horns on the head as well. It looks really, really sinister, but I'm pretty sure it's facing that way.
Where?
It's the first time that there's been any evidence captured on actual film footage of it. Nobody's actually got a still of it, have they?
No.
This was obviously captured on camera.
A sweeping shot.
It's very, very dark.
No, yes it is.
It must be very dark in here at night, though, isn't it? So I don't know where that light source would have come from, because you can't really get a car down there very easily, can you, to light anything?
No.
So I don't know whether it was a full moon that night. But it's a good capture. It's a great image.
Hats off to anybody who comes in this graveyard in the dark. It's not going to be me. Why are you staring intently at a door?
Well, when I was doing my research, which actually involved reading an article by Cornwall Live, so it's got to be true.
Reputable company.
They said this door here had, when they came, had scratch marks on it.
Oh,
and they were saying it could
me.
be people so scared they were running away from the Owlman and trying to get into the church. There are actually some marks on
Scuff
this door,
marks.
aren't there?
Yeah, but really?
Here, yeah, look. Let me in. Let me in.
Just before we finish our story and sum up, it's important for you guys to know that the timeline, there is a little bit more information. So in 1976 you had the first sighting, or second sighting, of the Owlman. In 1977 Tony Doc Shields, his name appears again, and it's associated with a photograph that he captured of the Loch Ness Monster. It made the headlines in the newspapers once more. He says it's genuine, not everybody was convinced. And then in 1978 we start with further sightings of the Owlman. So let's just do our sum up and share our thoughts with you. So we came to Mawnan Church today to tell you guys the story of the Owlman, to put feet on the ground, tell you the evidence, the reports that we found, have a look in the woods and scout around for any evidence of this creature. What do you guys think? What do you think?
I think it's a really interesting story. I mean, I read about this a few years ago, and it's gone on for quite a few years, and we've got a lot of old books at home, haven't we? And a lot of these legends go back hundreds and hundreds of years, isn't it? And they obviously get embellished over the years, and they're a good story at the end of the day, aren't they? Folklore.
Yes.
But there's no reference that we've actually uncovered of anything before the 1920s.
No, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this whole story, you can imagine it here. It's really secluded, isn't it? There's no passing traffic. It's really quiet. You demonstrated down there with the lichen on that bench, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
It's deserted.
It's deserted here. It's a really quiet spot. So you can imagine anything down here kind of freaking you out a little bit, isn't it?
So it also gives you the opportunity to retell an old story, make it real. And if you're a bit of a conjurer and a bit of a magician, you can bring it to life in quite a convincing way, especially if you're practiced at your art. So I personally sit on the side that maybe Tony Doc Shields had a little part to play in resurrecting this sighting business, and it kind of lasting for 20 years. Funnily enough, it kind of stops when he moves out the county.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel if there was something down here, it's a bit like the Beast of Bodmin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which gets spotted from time to time. And if there was something living in this woods at the back of the churchyard, I think there would have been more sightings over the years.
Yeah,
and you're
I
dealing
agree.
with a winged creature, which makes it trickier because they can fly off.
Yeah.
Isn't it? However, going back to the 1930s with that surrealist here,
Yeah.
if he actually came here and he was conjuring up things, yes, then you know, there could have been all sorts going on in this churchyard, some sort of demons or something like that, isn't it? There's a possibility, there is a possibility that there are things which we don't know about that could be present here and haven't been actually exercised, maybe.
And adding to that, they did disturb the ground a few years before Max Ernst arrived.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be sacred ground, isn't it?
No, I still don't believe it.
You still don't believe it?
I still don't believe it.
Okay,
I still
okay.
think it's a hoax.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is it's definite, it definitely happened,
Okay.
and 0 is it's absolute rubbish, where are you putting it on the scale?
2.
2?
Yeah.
As high as that?
Well, only because I heard that owl in the woods. Do you know? Actually, if I hadn't heard that owl in the woods,
Right.
it would be a big fat 0.
Right, okay.
But that kind of freaked me out.
Okay. I love this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know I do.
I know,
I am
I
a
know.
child with this sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
true,
I so want to
Believe
believe in
it.
this. I want to look up at that tower and see this mighty image of the Owlman
No.
raising above it. But do you know what I think? I think this was just a convenient story that's been put
Embellished.
together and embellished over the years. But
Where
it-
do you sit then on your scale?
well, they have got evidence. These youngsters,
You're off
haven't they?
again. Give
They
me a
have got
number.
these evidence.
Give
So
me a
if you're
number.
watching this video, I reckon these young women would, if they're still around today, they're going to be in their 60s. I reckon something like that. Maybe they might be watching. They might put it in the comments and tell me that yes, it definitely happened. Because there are eyewitness evidence.
Come
isn't
on, give us a number. You're spinning it out here.
there? I'm going to 3. 3 out of 10. I so want to believe in
I
this.
thought
as
you
well.
were going to be on a 6.
No, I so want to believe in this,
Oh,
but
well.
I think this is a great big hoax.
I do too.
Yeah.
What do you think? Put it in the comments. We love getting your comments and share your thoughts about it. Or if you can find out anything more, apparently there's a great big thick book that somebody's managed to get printed on this. And if he's managed that on the back of a hoax, he's done incredibly well.
Very good, yeah.
But for now, we're going to sum it up because it is starting to really rain. And we will see you next time. So, bye.
Bye.
Right, come on, out of here now. I'm not waiting until it gets dark.